Good afternoon, my name is Andrew Woodcock. My connection with the Raf Yatesbury Association is my late father served from early 1940 to late 1947 with the Bristol Aeroplane Company at their flying school. He was an Australian citizen, and although he was a member of the Australian Reserves, he couldn't get back to Australia, so he signed up as a temporary job at Yatesbury, which was declared war essential, and he never got away. In 1995, I took an interest in the Raf Yatesbury Association and became a member. I am currently the Vice Chairman of the Raf Yatesbury Association.
I have the job of supporting the timber on the three.
I'm standing in the Benson Hall in the village of Compton, Bassett. We have an exhibition of many artefacts tracing the life of the Raf Yatesbury Association, which was established about 1995. In that year, a large sarsen stone at the entrance to the former Yatesbury RAF camp was dedicated. There was a large number of people turned out. A group of enthusiasts, Mr. Eddie Brown and his son Paul from Malmesbury, were intent upon restoring one or two meteors to at least taxiing condition. Many airmen who served at Yatesbury during the various times took an interest in this and decided to see could they form an association. So the first meeting was in Caen, and it was decided to hold an annual service round about VJ Day, which is the anniversary of the surrender of the Japanese Empire, which marked the end of the Second World War. This has grown in many years. The camp is interesting because the original camp was founded about 1915 when the Royal Flying Corps was in existence. The Royal Flying Corps eventually became the Royal Air Force, but at the end of the First World War, many of the buildings, if not all of them, apart from some hangars, were demolished and the land reverted to farm use. Of course, in 1938 or so, the war was just about getting underway and the place was reactivated, buildings were put up. The Bristol Aeroplane Company operated a flying school here, which operated from about 1938 up to 1947 when it closed. Radio, you had radar, and for its day it was a very advanced, comprehensive courses were conducted. Various other items of interest were that nearby in the town of Devizes, there were some Germans escaped, and they came to Yatesbury with the idea of discovering if there was any way they could steal a plane and get back to Germany. So the history of these two camps is very interesting.
Okay. No, I want to find out. I can just get it out. Yeah. Did you have your cup of tea?
You'll see behind me, you can see the history of the First World War. Many of the servicemen who were here, some unfortunately met with flying accidents, and they're buried in the churchyard at All Saints in the Yatesbury village. The Second World War, the camp grew and grew. Of course, in addition to the Royal Air Force and Imperial and Colonial forces, you had airmen from occupied countries such as France, the Low Countries, Czech, Norway, and many other parts of Europe. They were all mucking in together, and I believe there were some Americans as well.
In 1916, the Royal Flying Corps developed Yatesbury Field to train pilots. There were two camps on either side of the minor road leading from the A4. The airfield opened in November with number 55 Reserve Squadron with the Avro 504A and the Scout D. We tend to think of aerial photography as a modern skill, but as many of the photographs show, this is certainly not the case. Looking at the fragile aeroplanes of the time, we realise how brave the pilots were to undertake nighttime flying over enemy positions. Captain Douglas Gaball, aged 20, was killed whilst flying over Wiltshire with Second Lieutenant Delmar Williamson. He'd much experience of flying over the Western Front, having transferred to the RFC in August 1916. Second Lieutenant Delmar Williamson, aged 19, Black Watch attached to RFC, was killed whilst flying over Wiltshire owing to collapse of the machine. He was commissioned in the Black Watch in October 1916, transferring to the RFC in April 1917.
But the end of the war saw a change. Of course, you had the Cold War. Berlin airlift had its impact on the camp. But with the change of the defence requirements, eventually the Yatesbury and Compton Bassett were wound up in the mid-1960s. I think 65, I believe, was the demise of Yatesbury, and 66, I think, was the demise of Compton Bassett. But the mark on the towns and the villages is very marked, and will always be from the air. You can see the outline of buildings even now. Over on here you can see the fact that it wasn't just men in the First World War, and the Second World War for that matter. You can see here the Women's Land Army. Although that existed in the Second World War, this was in the First World War. Britain was starved of food because of the German submarines bombing and sinking our ships. You can see also Women's Army Auxiliary Corps. So they did their bit. Everybody mucked in. The nation was united, both the First and the Second World War, in a way that we can't nowadays comprehend. It wasn't just them and us. It was the nation united in a common cause to defeat the enemy and keep our land safe. Guy Gibson, of course, the Dam Buster fame, Sergeant Hanna, VC, Sam Costa the Entertainer. There you see Sir Patrick Moore. There is Billy Cotton of Wakey Wakey, the radio and TV show. There is Derek Ibsen, the long distance runner. That's Charles Hawtrey of Carry On fame. Sir Francis Chichester there, who all served at one time or another in various capacities. The building in the middle with the red door is the former Green Dragon public house, which is to the north of the Green in Cairn. Many people would have spent their hard-earned cash having a down in the pints of one was 6X or whatever the typical of a day was, probably George's Brewery from Bristol. This is what's known as an Avo Meter. It was for measuring voltages, currents, resistances, AC and DC. Anybody who's been in the electronics business or of any sort will have been familiar with it. You've got various switches for controlling what range you're going to look at, whether it's voltages, currents and the rest of it, and the needle will give an indication on there. For high voltage you'll connect up on there, and for ordinary voltages down there. This would be very, very common to anybody who had a connection with electronics anyway. Well, it's an interesting cartoon there. It shows two people coming away from a crashed aircraft, and it says, a good landing is any landing you can walk away from, which I think we can all agree with. As a county, Wiltshire has got a very good records centre in Chippenham, in Cocklebury Road. They've got many, many items which have been preserved over the years, and very, very good archives, and you can access their information database. You see there's a website here which is World Wide Web at wiltshiresoldiers.co.uk, and you can pull up information about your loved ones, who they were, where they served at. You can see above it, that's written by a widow. Her husband Bill was killed in April 1917 in France. He's remembered on the Arras Flying Memorial as one of these people, no known grave. On that Sunday morning, your life went out into the ether and you left me here. From higher than the highest hill you came spinning down. Your body that belonged to me must have made a big hole in the ground. And I, who could have rendered living beautifully for you, even if you had not been crippled or disfigured or blinded, may not touch, nor hear, nor see you anymore. That is what sacrifice is about, and that is a sacrifice of brave men and women down the ages who saw fit to defend their nation, and we take our hat off to people like that. Here you can see details of airmen who were killed or injured in various flying accidents in the area. One is of interest over here. This gentleman, he was a member of the Imperial Russian Armed Forces. This, of course, was before the Russian Revolution, and he, of course, was an Allied airman serving in the area. Some of these accidents occurred, we're not sure why. Some mechanical failures, but the aircraft came down in this area. Some hit the downs above Cairn. You see here an early memorial. This is probably before the Commonwealth War Graves Commission standard memorials came in. The age of some of these people were fairly young. You know, you're talking about 20, 21 and so. They never had a real life. Over on the other side, if you can pan over to there, you can see here John Ball, Britain, the well-known thing of Your Country Needs You, Lord Kitchener, and here you see there are three types of men. Those who hear the call and obey, those who delay, and the others. It says, to which do you belong? This is an appeal to the highest standards of people. Well, here is a collection of memorabilia, pictures and various other things. There's a photograph of the former entrance to Royal Air Force Compton Bassett. Over on the right there, that building has recently been demolished, but that was been a NAFI, it was the guard room, and that was the entrance to the camp running through there. It's an exhibition about the Cairn branch line. Many servicemen and women who served at Yatesbury or Compton Bassett would have come through Chippenham to Cairn, and people arriving in Chippen railway station, the railwaymen in Chippen used to say, over the bridge for Cairn, and so you went over the footbridge to the island platform, and then the 6.5 miles of single track would take you to Cairn railway station. The first thing they saw arriving in Cairn railway station was the large red brick building of C&T Harris, makers of sausages and bacon in 6 generations, founded in the 1700s.